E aí, what's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. Ó, Evil Dia postou um vídeo de 1 hora, cara. Vou ver meia hora hoje, meia hora amanhã. Mas vamos que vamos. 1h13, tá ligado? Partiu? Why I fundamentally disagree with AOD Dream Spanish.
What's up, grind?
Porque eu fundamentalmente discordo com o método AOD.
And just welcome back to the channel. Now, I want to talk about ALG, Automatic Language Growth Method, once again. I know, I constantly talk about it on this channel, but as I've said many times before...
Eu sei, eu constantemente tô falando sobre esse método, mas...
It is a big part of my...
Hoje eu vou ficar um pouquinho mais quieto, porque como é 30 minutos de vídeo, para o vídeo não ficar mais longo do que 30 minutos, entendeu? Então eu vou ficar pausando menos. Vou tentar falar por cima, talvez, mas vou tentar pausar menos, tá bem? Para não ficar muito excessivo, maçante.
My journey in learning Spanish via the Dreaming Spanish method, which is essentially just a wrapper for ALG. Now, one thing I am constantly accused of by, I don't know, people who are not happy with my progress in Spanish using this method is that I do not actually understand ALG, or maybe I do understand it and I'm misrepresenting it, and I should go watch the speeches of David Long. For those who don't know, he basically took over, like, you can literally see it's over here, okay? So this is the guy who invented it, J. Marvin Brown. And if you just do a search on this very page, this is Wikipedia, okay? David Long. You can see that David Long is the coordinator for AUA, the Thai program, which is, he basically took over from Marvin Brown here. So we're gonna sit down and we're gonna watch the speeches of David Long about the ALG method, okay? And as you can see, I've already seen these because, well, I watched them fucking ages ago because I clearly wanted to know what the method entailed, okay?
Tá, todo mundo fala que ele não sabe, aí eu vou falar mais rápido, tá? Quando eu pausar. Todo mundo fala que ele não sabe sobre o método da AOD, ele tá fazendo, mas ele não sabe. E aí ele parou pra pesquisar, então. E o próprio dono desse método tem vídeos no YouTube e ele viu.
Okay, so we're gonna do it together because I'm sick of being accused of not knowing this and not seeing the speeches or not covering what's actually said. So I figure if I do this in a video, next time I'm accused, which will probably be in the comment section of this very, very video that we're watching here together, I can just say, watch the video, bruh. I've reviewed them. My community's reviewed them. We know what is required, okay? So let's begin. Now, I'm gonna smash our way through these. I'm gonna go on, I think I've got it on...
Até os fãs dele estavam mandando os vídeos pra ele assistir.
1.25. I may end up speeding it up a bit because obviously, you know, this is going to, fuck it, it's going to be a long video. You guys want a long video. We're having a long video. Make sure you sub to the goddamn channel, okay? Sub. It helps. Trust me. It makes me feel loved and wanted.
ALG, or Automatic Language Growth, began in Bangkok in 1984.
Okay. I'm going to put lots of jokes in, but I will also add serious comments to this based on my current journey and also my experiences with learning other languages. But straight up, the first thing is when I watch this video, it reminds me of those military introduction videos where they'll be like, today we're going to talk about an IED. An IED will kill you. You know, this type of thing.
Teaching Thai to foreigners who are coming to Thailand to live. The method's since been used teaching English, Chinese, Japanese, both to adults and to children, and has gained mild to great interest in some cases among people in the language learning community.
Okay, so obviously on this channel, it has gained great interest because it is a big part of one of the languages I'm learning.
Our program is unique because it focuses on what adults do in order to acquire language. We focus on something completely different. In all recent research that we are familiar with in terms of brain research or linguistic research.
Now, he will reference linguistic research. If you are a linguist, please comment down below if he says something that is incorrect or is now out of date, okay? Because obviously this is an older video and I'm not a linguist. I'm going to be responding based on my actual experiences.
We find a tremendous consistency with our basic foundations and what we're learning today in modern science. The foundations of ALG are very simple, in fact. We believe that adults, in fact, can learn like children. In the historical kind of reasoning of people.
O negócio de aprender como criança me irrita, velho. Ah, mas você é uma criança no idioma, não sei o quê. Existem várias formas. Existem várias formas de aprender, não é só uma, gente. Você escolhe uma e vai, e é isso. Uma demora mais, outra demora menos, e é isso, tá tudo bem, tá tudo tranquilo.
It's always been, oh, adults can't learn anymore like children. The age of 4, 5, and 6 are the years when you have to gain a second or third language to really be proficient. Dr. Brown, Dr. J. Marvin Brown, began ALG when he realized that through years and years of practice, no matter how much the adult practiced, no matter what the background of that adult was, they never could achieve anything close to what the young child could do. And naturally, people have seen this over and again, and we find out that the reasoning that comes from that, or the conclusions we've drawn from that as a society, is adults can't learn like children. Dr.
Adulto não
Brown
pode aprender como
looked at
criança.
that
Ele tá falando.
conclusion, and through the research of men like Stephen Krashen and many others, realized that there were some problems in that reasoning that adults can't learn like children. May not be the case at all. The reasoning went something like this: here are children, young children, gain a second language or a third language, they become proficient or very fluent in a short amount of time. Adults trying to gain that same language never become proficient and take as long as a lifetime and achieve much less results. The reasoning seemed to be faulty in that what children do and what adults do, completely different things. And so Dr. Brown decided to design a program based on the idea that adults need to do what children do in order to gain the same results in a second language acquisition. That's what ALG is. The ALG is the product of that determination.
So as you can see, they're basically trying to, with ALG, mimic how children learn. Now, I do want to inject a little bit here, okay, because I have been learning Spanish via the website Dreaming Spanish, okay, this service called Dreaming Spanish. And Dreaming Spanish says that they implement ALG. There is a slight difference between ALG and what Dreaming Spanish does. So even though I am testing ALG, I am testing it to the best of my abilities, because the way that they did it is it was in a classroom environment with teachers. So you would essentially be stuck in 100% almost crosstalk, although it's not really crosstalk because it'd be one teacher with multiple students, but the teachers would be engaging the students' interactions. You know, did it look like they were visually understanding as they were progressing through the program? Obviously, when we're more sitting here in front of a computer watching content, that doesn't work so much. So technically, everyone who does ALG, not in a classroom environment, is actually not doing ALG to the letter of the word. But
Tecnicamente, todo mundo faz ELD, tirando na classe de aula, na sala de aula.
most proponents of ALG are not doing it in a classroom environment anyway, so we can't really use that to... Like, I just want to put that out there. I just want to put that out there because those who tell me I'm doing it wrong are probably doing it wrong themselves. If you're going strict by the way the system was designed.
The idea that adults and children do different things is not new. And if we look at a simple picture, and you just take this house, for example, everyone comes to language learning with some goals in mind. I think everyone wants to speak. Most people, or maybe not most, but many, want to learn to read and, of course, to write. If we look at these abilities, we say, yeah, we're learning a second language to speak and read, or to read and write, or to write, or to speak and read and write. This is common everywhere.
Aí ele vai falar que escrever, ler e falar é a casa, mas a fundação tem que ser ouvir e o restante, ó.
The idea that adults must try in order to be proficient. Practice makes perfect is the old concept, if you will, is what most language programs are actually based on. Conversational English always seems to focus on how do you say it correctly. And it creates many, many problems for the student, not the least of which is a fear of saying it wrong. The self-consciousness and the tenseness of that kind of a setting that we've often, if we've gone through...
I just want to point out, that is an assumption about a student. Not every student is fearful of saying things wrong. I'm not scared about saying things wrong. If I say something wrong, fine, whatever it is, okay? But that is a base assumption that's actually not true across the board. across the board. Okay, now it probably applies to most students. They sit there, they're afraid of saying things wrong, but it's actually
Hoje é dia 10. Ó, dia 10. Dia 100, né, velho? Dia 100, hoje é dia 100. Hoje é dia 100, parabéns pra você que tá comigo aí desde o começo. É nóis, tamo junto.
not true for all students, so it's just an interesting point.
That process of trying to learn the right thing and remember the right thing, then go out and practice the right thing is very strenuous. And in all of modern research and psychological research, no one claims that that sort of stress is helpful in the learning process. So when we look at
Also, I'm not sure if the science backs that up. I'm not a scientist, anything, okay, but I do know that people generally learn better under stress. Like, I've seen plenty of articles about that, and I know through my experience in the military that a very, very stressful environment can actually cement things a lot better than just a more chill environment. This is why people, when they go through like a super traumatic, stressful event, they never forget it. Like, they remember every detail of it. By the way, I'm not saying we need to traumatize our students, guys. I'm just saying that it's not black and white.
when we look at the goal, it's important that we understand how to achieve the goal we're seeking to achieve. If you ask a writer, how do I become a very good writer? Everywhere in the world, the writer would say, read a lot. So here we have a case where input produces output. Is it possible that speaking is the output and the input is something, perhaps in this case, below ground, that we fail to look at? Everyone talks about the listening ability. We want to submit that understanding is the key element of input that must be gained in order to speak well.
Tá, input transforma em output. Normal.
Our program of
Now, I don't disagree with this. In fact, I'm pretty sure most modern ways of learning are based around this. Like, if you're looking at a more traditional, when I say traditional, I mean just non-ALG, okay? When you look at pretty much every other approach, it's about understanding, right? Like, we still achieve understanding, we just do it in different ways. Maybe it's via, you know, Anki, with flashcards, with grammar study, like that achieves understanding.
É o que eu tô falando. É o compreensível. Tem gente que aprende de um jeito, tem gente que aprende de outro. Tem vários jeitos de aprender. Você escolhe qual que você quer aprender. Mais rápido, mais demorado, mais normal, tranquilo. Existia também negócio de lazy method. Método preguiçoso.
This is their way of achieving understanding is different.
over 20 years has shown many students, many cases where with large amounts of understanding, the experiences, the activities that go on, they're able to have an output that's both natural and fluent and very easily to understood. And the whole aspect of practice is completely lost in this program. This puts the student at ease. We're not required to test them. All we're required to do as an organization, as a program here, is provide the students with the right kind of input so they understand. If we can consider two aspects below the ground then of our program here at AUA, we are thinking about producing the best speakers possible. We're looking about becoming fluent in reading and writing.
Also, I want you to pay attention to how this is structured. Understanding leads to speaking. Once you've got speaking down, you lead to reading, which once you get that down, you lead to writing, okay? That's the flow that they've got there. Again, this is another point where Dreaming Spanish Roadmap actually dived
Mas eu acho que ali não tá em ordem. Ele tá reclamando que um tá abaixo do outro, mas eu acho que não tá em ordem, não.
verges, okay? Because if you look at the Dreaming Spanish Roadmap at 1,000 hours, and don't worry, we'll get into the hours and everything, okay? This is where they actually introduce, where they recommend that you start both speaking and reading, which if you were to apply the logic that they're applying here is like once you've reached a certain point of understanding, then you start to speak, and once you've reached a certain point of speaking, then you start to read. But from what I've noticed, most people who are trying to follow the pure method of ALG online, they actually go to reading before they go to speaking, which isn't really following ALG. So like if you were to actually follow ALG, you would go to speaking, get to a certain point of that, like a good point, then go to reading, which if you're following the logic of ALG actually makes sense, because once you're able to speak well enough, that means you know the most common words and how to say them. So when you start reading and the whole vocalization of the words on the page come out, you're going to vocalize them correctly, because the only time you're going to start speaking is when you're speaking with someone, the assumption is here, okay? And you're going to, in some way, inadvertently be corrected, either by the situation because the person won't understand you, or maybe they'll actually correct you, or, well, actually, the ALG assumption is that by the time you start speaking, it just kind of rolls out naturally, but we'll get into that in a moment.
But there's an order here that must be made right. The common order in second language programs seems to be starting with an alphabet, learn to read and write, and then to practice words and practice and practice and practice until we build up enough vocabulary to form sentences and so on. And the idea is that forms the basis for second language use. In our experience, the opposite is true. Our experience is that when we provide the student with large amounts of understanding, that forms the basis for all these other things to...
Tá, então o entendimento é o que forma a base para falar, ler e escrever. Sim, 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 você tem que entender. Entendimento. Ainda mais no método dele que é o input compreensível.
In a natural way. We see this with young children at the age of 1 to 2 years old. Children develop naturally from a basis of understanding, and it develops into speaking. And later on, they learn to read and write. And so there's a natural process here that we want to replicate. There are two elements of things here that we want to look at. Over here we'll say time, because later on as we look at what questions students often ask in our program.
Yeah, so you can see he's added the line there to say, you know, you go from understanding to speaking to reading to writing. Okay, so that's where Dreaming Spanish, again, diverges. They don't tell you that you should be starting with speaking and then at some point go to reading. Like, they're very clear about the input side of things, the understanding, but then they're just like, when you hit 1,000 hours, you just start speaking and reading. Now, they say you can start early.
Talvez só tá fora de ordem, porque ao mesmo tempo que você vai entender, você vai ler. Só que falar que é mais difícil.
And stuff, you know, depending on if you speak already a similar language, but essentially they don't point out that there's a difference here, according to ALG. So Dreaming Spanish, like my Dreaming Spanish reviews, it's hard because they don't quite follow the ALG model. And that's, like, I'm trying to test both.
Program. How long does it take? How much understanding do I need? And we'll come back to that in a moment. The other aspect here are abilities, if you will. The ability of the student you can edit that out, I'm sure.
I guess what he's trying to say here is that as your time increases with understanding, your ability with understanding increases.
The ability of the student is an important...
Mas aí isso aí é óbvio, né? Quanto mais tempo que você passa fazendo, mais habilidoso você fica.
Thing, but what must the student be able to do? In a traditional program where we're learning words from letters, we start with letters of the alphabet, we go to words and then phrases. Student ability is very important. One of my own personal experiences is I was not a very good language student. In fact, in all of my English classes, which were my first language classes, I could easily say it's my worst subject. Later on in school, I came into Spanish classes, and even in my life I was surrounded by many Spanish-speaking friends. The Spanish classes were worse than English. Later on in school I came into...
Oh, by the way, it just swapped to the second video in that series now, so we'll just jump ahead a little bit because for some reason they don't clip it perfectly.
In college I actually began to study some ancient Greek. If a modern language, a used language, isn't bad enough, going into an ancient language is 10 times worse. It's not even used anywhere. And the amount of memorization and the amount of work and effort that goes into all of those classes, whether it's English, Spanish, Greek in my case, I think that the abilities that were required in those classes and the abilities we find necessary in a natural language acquisition class, completely different abilities.
He's not pointing out something here, okay? When you're learning a language at school, at least for me, when I was learning Japanese at school, we had one class a week. That was 1 hour a week, okay? Like, you're not going to learn a language like it's not even 52 hours a year, but like, you know, fucking 45 hours a year. You can't do a comparison to...
Mas esse é o problema do curso de inglês. Tem gente que vai pro curso de inglês e em vez de levar o inglês com ele depois, não. É 1 hora na semana do curso de inglês, ela acha que vai ficar fluente no final do ano. Não. Quem fica fluente é porque faz o curso de inglês, só que depois, quando você está em casa, você vai buscando se aperfeiçoar também e vai buscando passar mais horas com o idioma. Você pode ter certeza que foi isso. Ninguém faz 1 hora por semana e fica fluente, não. Leva um século para fazer desse jeito, né?
Their method, which requires hours of work per day. In fact, for them, they found the happy point to be around 6 hours.
So what abilities does a student need in order to develop natural language, whether it's Thai or English or what have you? The first ability for the student is very simple, and the amazing thing about these abilities is we all have them. The first ability will be to look. If we analyze, what is it that the baby does in acquiring their native language? It's very simple. They look at everything. They're looking around and looking and just soaking in everything they see. All right? It's a very simple ability. You have that ability, there's hope for you to gain a second language naturally. The second thing they do is they listen.
Okay, now, if we compare it to my current journey with Dreaming Spanish at 850 plus hours, what have I done? Obviously a lot of looking, I'm watching the content, and I'm listening.
It's amazing to me that we expect good pronunciation without listening to the native language speaker.
I don't think anyone expects that. Like, for example, when I learned Chinese, I knew I could not pronounce certain sounds, and I would listen to native speaker, in this case being my wife, and I would get her to say the sound. I would repeat it back, and she would tell me literally where I was getting it wrong, okay? So, again, getting to the objective is the same, just the path that I took to get there was different, and that's how I can pronounce the sounds of Chinese now.
Listening only a little bit. The whole pattern of the language is found in being exposed to experiences where that language is. If you're not exposed to a language like Chinese, how will you ever be able to speak a language like Chinese? In our...
Quanto mais você passar tempo. Eu ia fazer meia hora de vídeo hoje, mas não vou fazer não. Vou estudar por fora, mas aqui, no vídeo aqui, para não ficar maçante, não vou fazer meia hora não. Tá bem? Alright?